In 1513, a man was arrested in the middle of the night, not for theft, not for murder, for writing. He was tortured, exiled, stripped of everything, and the document they tried to bury. It's still being used today by billionaires, Wall Street insiders, and the most powerful negotiators alive, while the rest of the world works harder and wonders why nothing changes. His name was Niccolò Machiavelli, and what he wrote, they were never supposed to let you read. What you're about to hear is not a motivational speech. This is not work hard and believe in yourself. This is darker than that. In the next 10 minutes, I'm going to walk you through 7 psychological money principles. Principles quietly documented 500 years ago that still govern how wealth moves, how power shifts, and why certain people seem to win almost effortlessly. Carnegie knew these. Rockefeller lived by them. The tech founders building trillion-dollar empires today, they didn't stumble into that. Stay with me until Principle 6. Because that one, most people aren't ready to hear out loud. And if you've ever felt like the game is rigged against you, you're not wrong. But by the end of this video, you'll finally understand the rules, the perception principle. Let me ask you something. Have you ever noticed how 2 people can walk into the same room, say almost the same things, and be treated completely differently? That's not an accident. Machiavelli wrote that a prince must appear virtuous, not necessarily be virtuous. 5 centuries later, psychologists gave it a name, the halo effect. Here's what it means for your money. Studies show that job candidates dressed in tailored, well-fitted clothing receive salary offers averaging 18% higher than equally qualified candidates who don't signal status visually. Same resume, same answers, different signals, and luxury brands. They've built entire empires on this principle. You're not paying for better materials when you buy a $3.00 bag. You're paying for what carrying it says about you. The product is the perception. Now here's how you use this. Before any pitch, negotiation, or first impression, curate the signal before the conversation begins. Your environment, your punctuality, your email signature, they all speak before you do. But here's the warning. And pay attention to this. When someone is selling you a perception with no substance underneath it, that's not confidence. That's manipulation. Ask yourself, what is this person actually delivering versus what are they just appearing to deliver? Perception opens doors, but principle 2 is what keeps you in the room, the debt of gratitude. What if generosity was a weapon? What if every time someone did something nice for you, completely unprompted, they were making a calculated move? Machiavelli understood something that behavioral scientist Robert Cialdini would later prove in laboratories. The person who gives first controls the exchange. It's called reciprocity, and it runs deeper than most people realize. When an investor spends 3 months mentoring a young founder before asking for a single thing, they are not just being kind. They're building psychological debt. When the equity conversation comes, the founder feels they owe it. Sales reps do this constantly. The free consultation, the no obligation audit, the gift before the pitch. You feel obligated. That's the point. Pause and think right now. When was the last time someone did something genuinely unexpected for you? Did you feel a pull to return it, even slightly? That pull, is the mechanism. Here's how to protect yourself. When someone is unusually generous with no obvious reason, don't act immediately. Wait, watch. The ask is coming. And when it does, you'll negotiate from clarity instead of from guilt. Reciprocity is powerful. But principle 3 is how the truly wealthy make sure they never need to rely on anyone else's generosity at all. The scarcity illusion. Here's a dark truth about human psychology. We don't want what's available. We want what we might not be able to have. Machiavelli observed this in the distribution of political power. It concentrates around scarce things: land, information, access, and modern behavioral economics has confirmed it with devastating precision. You've seen this before. A shoe brand releases 500 pairs. Lines form. Resale prices triple. Was the shoe different? No, the scarcity was different. But here's where it gets personal. In job negotiations, candidates who subtly project competing offers, real or implied, consistently receive higher counteroffers. The moment you become potentially unavailable, your value recalibrates upward. Control your own scarcity. Your time, your attention, your expertise, none of it should feel infinitely available. The moment you're always reachable, always free, always eager, you've eliminated the tension that makes you valuable. And the warning, this is critical. The only 3 left notification, almost always a lie. The countdown timer on that investment offer. Manufactured urgency. Artificial scarcity is one of the most common manipulation tactics in existence. And now that you know what it looks like, you'll see it everywhere. Scarcity creates demand. But principle 4 shows you how to control the entire financial conversation. Before it even starts, the first number wins. Whoever speaks first in a negotiation wins. This isn't opinion. This is Tversky and Kahneman's anchoring effect, one of the most replicated findings in behavioral economics. The first number stated in any negotiation becomes the psychological center of gravity. Everything that follows orbits around it. A freelancer who opens at $5,000 will rarely settle below $3,500 even after hard pushback. But the freelancer who waits, they get anchored to the client's $800 opener, and they feel lucky to leave with $1,200. Real estate agents have known this for decades. They list above market deliberately because even buyers who negotiate down feel they've won. The anchor was never real. The savings weren't real. The frame was. Have you ever walked away from a deal feeling like you gave too much, and you couldn't figure out exactly when it happened? It happened before you said a single word. How to use this. Research your realistic range, then anchor above it. Confidently, first, and if someone anchors you, don't counter slowly. Immediately reframe with your own number, stated with certainty. Anchoring controls the terms, but principle 5 controls something even more fundamental. It controls whether people even pursue you at all. The strategic withdrawal. What if disappearing made you more powerful? Machiavelli warned explicitly against making yourself too available. Because familiarity doesn't just breed contempt, it collapses perceived value. Modern psychology calls this reactance theory. When people feel they might lose access to something or someone, desire intensifies. the moment access feels unlimited. The desire starts to fade. Think about the most sought after people in any industry. The consultant who's booked 3 months out. The executive who takes 48 hours to reply. Are they always actually that busy? Sometimes, not always. In negotiation specifically, silence is one of the most underused weapons available to you. After you make an offer, say nothing. Studies consistently show that waiting 24 to 48 hours before responding to a counteroffer improves your final outcome. The other party fills the silence with anxiety, anxiety that benefits you. But here's the dark warning, and this one matters. When someone consistently withdraws to keep you anxious, uncertain, and eager for their approval, that is not strategy. That is emotional manipulation. In relationships, in workplaces, in friendships, if the pattern is withdrawal designed to destabilize you, that's a red flag, not a power move. Strategic absence creates pull. But principle 6, the one I told you to hold on for, goes to something most people are too uncomfortable to admit out loud. The fear frame. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Hope is a weak motivator. Fear is a machine. Daniel Kahneman's Nobel Prize winning research proved that the pain of loss is psychologically twice as powerful as the pleasure of equivalent gain. Machiavelli put it more bluntly 500 years earlier. It is better to be feared than loved, if you cannot be both. In modern money psychology, this translates to one principle. Frame your value around what someone loses by not acting, not what they gain by acting. Every insurance product ever sold leads with fear. Every premium investment pitch leads with fear. What happens to your family if? That's not an accident. It's architecture. In salary negotiation, the phrase, "every year you delay this conversation," is income you will never recover. Statistically outperforms any positive framing. You're not selling the raise. You're selling the cost of not getting it. Pause right now and think honestly. The last major financial decision you made. Were you more driven by what you stood to gain, or what you were terrified of losing? Most people answer the same way. The warning here is serious. Any financial advisor, salesperson, or authority figure who leads exclusively with fear, without balanced data, without alternatives, without transparency, is not informing you. They are controlling you. Recognize the frame, then decide from outside it. Everything we've covered leads to principle 7. And this is where the patient ones win everything. The long game of most people want the hack, the shortcut, the one move. Machiavelli understood something different. His most underquoted insight wasn't about manipulation or fear. It was about time. Fortune favors the bold, but only those bold enough to wait. Warren Buffett built over 90% of his wealth after his 50th birthday. Not because he suddenly got smarter, because he applied sound principles, consistently, patiently, compounded over decades. The tactics in this video, used once, they're tricks. Used as a system, over time, they become a fortress. The relationships you build using genuine strategic reciprocity today may not pay off for 10 years. The reputation for scarcity you cultivate now will command prices in 5 years that seem impossible today. Time is the multiplier most people refuse to invest, and the dark warning. The long game can also be weaponized. Slow, patient manipulation, someone who builds your trust over years before exploiting it, is among the most dangerous forms of psychological exploitation. Don't judge relationships by single actions. Watch for patterns across time. That's where the truth lives. The principle they never name. Now, here's what almost no one will say out loud. Every single principle in this video has one thing in common. They only work when you understand them and the other person doesn't. The moment both parties are equally aware, the dynamic equalizes. The perception principle becomes a shared game. The anchor gets countered. The fear frame gets named and dismantled. That is not a flaw in the system. That is the system. Knowledge asymmetry is the oldest source of financial and social power in recorded history. Not connections, not luck, not even capital, information, awareness, understanding the rules others don't know exist. Which means the single most dangerous thing you could do to anyone who benefits from keeping you unaware is precisely what you just did in the last 10 minutes. You learned, and that changes everything. Let's bring it home fast. Perception is your first signal. Curate it before you speak. Reciprocity creates obligation. Give strategically and recognize when it's being used on you. Scarcity manufactures desire. Control your availability and spot manufactured urgency before it costs you. Anchoring sets the frame. Speak first in any negotiation that matters. Strategic withdrawal drives pursuit. Silence and distance are tools, not weaknesses. The fear frame motivates action. Understand it. Use it responsibly, and never let it be used on you blindly. The long game compounds everything. Patience, applied to sound principles, is the actual secret of generational wealth. And above all of it, knowledge is the asymmetry that changes your position in every room you walk into. If this video shifted something in how you see money, power, or the people around you, hit like, subscribe. Every week, we go deeper into the psychology most people never get access to. And drop a comment right now. Which of these 7 principles have you already seen used against you without realizing it until today? I read everyone. The next video goes even deeper. You'll want to be there.